you just didn't observe systems and leadership. You also built this system from ground up, right? The School of Computing and Information at the Singapore Management University.
Right.
So, what do you thought I would design differently from what you learned over the years? Were there some non-negotiables? Were there something that you were ready to compromise on?
Well, so I don't really consider myself an academic, and I'm certainly not a classical academic. I started my career as a graduate student at Carnegie Mellon University, and my thesis advisor was not a classical person either. He was a PhD in mathematical physics in the 1950s, and in a unusual series of events, I'll spare the whole story. He ended up working with the person in the early 1960s doing the first large scale serious model and empirically based assessment of how a nuclear war would impact the economy and the environment. So I sort of had an unconventional thesis, made it through. So I'm in no way a classical researcher. And I get to go not just generic industry, but Fujitsu Limited's telecommunications manufacturing engineering group,
Mhm.
and they're right at the top of the world in who's number one, two, three, and how do you have a super high quality manufacturing system under this thing? So that's pretty heavy duty operational experience.
Yeah.
And I did that in Japan, and I worked with them in the US. And then I consulted in the US for some another company on how frontline workers in the field, the factory, the office often have to struggle with using the technology that the big companies purchased and put in their hands because it's not designed to be user centric, user friendly, really well aligned between the user, the desk, the domain, even though it was expensive to buy. So that really attunes me to how do you make it easy for people to get their work done?
Okay.
And how do you do that when people are under operational pressure? Because operational pressure is operational pressure. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say, how do we have nice workflows and nice interfaces when people don't feel literally like they're under intense pressure
Mhm.
and the stakes of mistakes are high versus making it happen in that kind of high pressure operational settings. So I had a lot of sensitivity to that world. And then I come to SMU, business, accounting, economics, social science, and I start the Infocom school. And there
Mhm.
are these two giant, successful, powerful, already existing universities with outstanding computer science departments,
Yeah.
none of which were uh, highly motivated to see ours succeed, because we're
Mhm.
this little upstart competitor. And so we positioned in new areas. That was the key thing. Why go head to head with the existing giants in their areas of strength? So one of the things that I was intentional about was picking new areas. And this was the early 2000s. So cybersecurity, it's not like it didn't exist, but it wasn't a big research topic in any of the local
Mhm.
universities other than a few like mathematicians and cryptographers,
Mhm.
but a very narrow specialized sense of cybersecurity. So bring in that area, bring in mobile, bring in unstructured data analytics. So we forward positioned. So that was very important. I'm not like a regular academic, so it's not for me to tell the faculty exactly how to do their work, but
Mhm.
as the dean, I put my time on just trying to understand every faculty member in terms of what are their key skills? What do they need to do their work? What are they interested in? And I sort of saw myself as chief enabler. What can I do to
Okay.
bring things into the environment
Mhm.
given, okay, I made the investment to hire some cybersecurity people, hire some data management people,
Mhm.
hire people in mobile systems or mobile data management. These are
Mhm.
some of the early areas that we went into. And, we don't have the big PhD infrastructure. We don't have everything that the two big universities in our backyard had. So, how do we pull in relationships or other things that just make it easy for them to work?